The city was loud, cold, and uncaring, the kind of place where everyone hurried past without looking anyone in the eye. Yet, beneath a flickering street lamp near the old bookstore, sat Ethan, a homeless man with kind eyes and a tattered jacket. Despite his rough appearance, he always greeted people with a gentle, "Good morning," even when most ignored him. One rainy afternoon, as the crowd rushed by, Ethan noticed something lying near the bus stop, a leather wallet, soaked but clearly expensive. He picked it up carefully and opened it. Inside was a driver's license, a few credit cards, and several $100 bills. He whispered, "Whoa, this could feed me for months." But then he saw the photo ID, Arthur Bennett, age 76. The face was kind but tired, and something about it made Ethan hesitate. Instead of keeping the money, Ethan dried the wallet with an old handkerchief and decided to find its owner. He walked miles through the rain, asking around with the photo. Most people shrugged him off, but finally, a shopkeeper recognized the name. "That's Mr. Bennett," she said. "He lives up on Elm Street, big mansion, but he's been sick lately." When Ethan reached the address, he froze. The gates were tall, and cameras watched every corner. He thought about turning back, until a frail old man appeared near the driveway, struggling with his cane. "Sir," Ethan called out, holding up the wallet, "I think this is yours." Arthur Bennett squinted, surprised. He took the wallet slowly, opening it. His eyes widened. "You found this? Everything's still here." "Yes, sir," Ethan replied simply. "Didn't feel right keeping something that wasn't mine." Arthur smiled faintly, then said, "Come in. I'd like to thank you properly." Ethan hesitated but followed him inside. The mansion was warm and glowing with golden light, a world away from the cold streets outside. A maid brought them tea, and Arthur asked softly, "What's your name, son?" "Ethan, sir." "Just Ethan." Arthur studied him for a long moment. "You're an honest man, Ethan. Those are rare these days." Ethan smiled shyly. "I just try to do what's right." He didn't know that his small act of honesty was about to change his life forever. The morning after returning the wallet, Ethan awoke beneath the old bookstore's awning, his blanket still damp from the night's rain. His stomach growled, but he felt an unusual peace. He had done the right thing. In a world that often looked the other way, he had chosen honesty, and that choice warmed him more than any meal could. He stretched, brushed the dust from his jacket, and walked toward the corner cafe that sometimes handed out leftover muffins. As he sipped the small cup of coffee the waitress had quietly slipped him, he replayed the meeting in his mind, the old man's gentle voice, the elegant house, the smell of cedar and books inside. He assumed he would never see Mr. Bennett again, but fate had other plans. Around noon, a sleek black limousine stopped at the curb. The driver, a tall man in a gray suit, scanned the sidewalk until his eyes found Ethan. "Mr. Ethan?" he asked formally. Ethan blinked, unsure. Yeah, Mr. Arthur Bennett requests your presence." Ethan's heart skipped. "Is something wrong?" The driver smiled. "Quite the opposite, sir." Ethan chuckled at the word sir. It had been years since anyone called him that. Inside the car, the scent of leather and cologne made Ethan self-conscious. He rubbed his rough hands against his knees. Through the tinted windows, the city blurred by, crowded streets, flickering billboards, lives rushing nowhere. When they reached the mansion, Arthur Bennett stood waiting at the top of the steps, cane in hand, sunlight glinting off his silver hair. "Ethan," he greeted warmly. "Come in, my boy." The mansion looked even larger in daylight, marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and portraits lining the walls. Yet nothing about Arthur felt distant or proud. His eyes were kind, curious. "I hope you don't mind me calling you here again," Arthur said as they sat in the sunroom overlooking a rose garden. "There's something I need to tell you." Ethan nodded, unsure. Arthur continued, voice softer now. "That wallet you returned, it wasn't just money inside. There was a letter from my late wife, Margaret. I carry it everywhere. If I had lost it forever, I'm not sure I could have forgiven myself." Ethan's eyes widened. "I didn't read it, sir. I know you didn't," Arthur interrupted gently. "That's precisely why I'm grateful. You could have taken everything, but you didn't." Arthur gestured toward a maid. "Lunch for two, please." The table filled with warm bread, roasted chicken, and soup so fragrant that Ethan's chest tightened. He hadn't eaten a proper meal in weeks. "Go on," Arthur urged. "Eat." Ethan hesitated only a second before giving in. Between bites, Arthur asked about his past. Ethan spoke honestly. He told him how he used to work as a carpenter, how a back injury and hospital bills had swallowed his savings, how he'd lost his apartment, his tools, his family. One day, he said quietly, everything just fell apart. Arthur listened without judgment, his fingers tapping thoughtfully on the cane. And yet, he murmured, you still chose honesty. Ethan shrugged. Money can come back, but if you lose who you are, you got nothing left. Arthur smiled, a small, proud smile that made Ethan look down in embarrassment. When lunch ended, Arthur reached into his jacket and placed a sealed envelope on the table. What's that? Ethan asked. Open it. Inside lay a check for $50,000. Ethan froze. His throat went dry. Sir, I can't take this. It's too much. Arthur leaned forward. It's not charity, Ethan. It's a thank you. You've given me something worth more than money, faith that decency still exists. But, Arthur raised a hand. Take it. Start again. Build the life you deserve. Tears blurred Ethan's vision. For years, he'd been invisible, yet here was a stranger treating him with dignity. He swallowed hard and whispered, thank you, Mr. Bennett. I won't waste it. Arthur smiled. I know you won't. That night, Ethan slept in a cheap motel bed instead of concrete. For the first time in years, he dreamed of sawdust and sunlight, of shaping wood with steady hands. The next morning, he cashed the check carefully, splitting it 3 ways, a deposit on a small apartment, a set of carpentry tools, and a modest savings account. He also bought hot meals for the few homeless friends who'd shared their scraps with him. Soon, Ethan's life began to change. He rented a small workshop on the edge of town and started building again, tables, shelves, birdhouses. At first, he sold them on sidewalks. Then local cafes began ordering custom pieces. Within months, Ethan Crafts had a sign over its door. Every day, he worked from dawn to dusk, whistling while the scent of wood filled the air. Customers admired not only his craftsmanship but also his kindness. He always had a smile, a story, or a free repair for someone who couldn't afford it. And every night, before locking up, he'd look at the corner where he'd once slept and whisper, thank you, Mr. Bennett. Half a year later, as autumn painted the city gold, Ethan received a call. Mr. Ethan, a woman's voice said, this is Clara, Mr. Bennett's assistant. He'd like to see you. Ethan's heart jumped. Of course. How is he? He's well, sir. But he insists you come today. Ethan arrived at the mansion to find Arthur in the library, surrounded by books and soft afternoon light. He looked older, frailer, but his smile was the same. Ethan, he said, voice steady, I've been watching you. Your little workshop, it's thriving. Ethan laughed shyly. Trying my best, sir. Still learning every day. Arthur nodded. You remind me of myself when I started. You know, I wasn't always wealthy. I built my company from nothing. But lately, I've been thinking about what truly matters. He gestured toward a folder on the table. I'm starting a foundation, a home for people who've lost everything, just like you once did. It will offer jobs, training, housing. But I need someone to lead it. Someone who understands both struggle and hope. Ethan blinked. You want me? Arthur smiled. Who better? Ethan's voice cracked. Sir, I don't have a degree, I don't even. You have honesty, Arthur said firmly. And heart. The rest can be learned. Tears filled Ethan's eyes. He remembered the cold nights, the hunger, the way people avoided his gaze. And now, this. I don't know what to say, he whispered. Say yes. Ethan nodded slowly. Then, yes. Over the following months, Ethan and Arthur worked side by side to launch the Bennett Foundation for Hope. They opened their first shelter in an abandoned school building. Ethan oversaw every detail: beds, kitchens, workshops where residents could learn trades. He spent his days teaching carpentry to men and women who had forgotten how to dream. You build a table, he told them, and you realize, you can build your life again too. Arthur visited often, leaning on his cane, pride glowing in his eyes. You've turned my gratitude into something bigger, he told Ethan one afternoon. Margaret would have loved this. Ethan smiled. She's part of it, sir. Her letter started it all. Arthur's eyes misted. Yes, perhaps it did. 2 years later, the foundation had expanded to 3 cities. News outlets ran stories about the homeless man who became a savior. Ethan disliked the spotlight but used it to raise funds for others. One evening, after a long event, Arthur sat with him by the fireplace. His voice was weaker now. Ethan, promise me something. Anything, sir. When I'm gone, keep this going. Keep helping people believe again. Ethan grasped his hand. You're not going anywhere. Arthur smiled faintly. We both know time doesn't listen to wishes. But I can rest easy knowing the right man will carry the torch. A week later, Arthur Bennett passed away peacefully in his sleep. Ethan stood at his funeral, surrounded by hundreds whose lives Arthur had touched. When it was his turn to speak, he said quietly, I once thought kindness was weakness. Then I met a man who proved it's the greatest strength. He gave me money, yes, but more than that, he gave me faith. After the ceremony, Arthur's lawyer handed Ethan a sealed envelope. Inside was a handwritten note and a set of keys. Dear Ethan, if you're reading this, I've gone to see Margaret. You once gave me back my wallet, but more importantly, you gave me back my hope. The house is yours now, but please, never stop building homes for others. Ethan wept, clutching the letter to his chest. Years later, the mansion had changed. Laughter filled its halls. It was no longer just Arthur's home, it was the headquarters of the Bennett Foundation for Hope, where volunteers came daily to plan new shelters and job programs. Ethan still lived modestly, in a small room near the garden where roses bloomed each spring. Sometimes, when the sun set, he would sit on the same bench where he had first handed Arthur the wallet. He would close his eyes and remember the rain, the trembling old hands, the moment that had rewritten both their fates. People often asked him, what made you return that wallet, when you had nothing? He would smile and say, because having nothing doesn't mean you are nothing. And one good choice can change everything. Underneath the foundation's logo, engraved in bronze, were the words Arthur himself had once spoken. Greater than, kindness is the only wealth that never runs out. And so, the homeless man who once had nowhere to go became the keeper of countless new beginnings, proof that sometimes, the smallest act of honesty can build a legacy that even time cannot erase.